that the Russians have a slogan, hard on the training field, easy in battle. I think that's true. I think it's something we might give a little thought to ourselves.
What's up? Every once in a while a man comes along who defies mortality. A man who time and time again comes out on top in direct contravention to the realities of life. In combat he goes untouched by enemy fire, even when standing directly in its path. Others may catch a stray round here or there, or just end up in the wrong foxhole at the wrong time. But not this fella. He goes toe to toe with a pack of German tanks and wins. In this episode, we're going to delve into the legend of a man who won every award for bravery and valor that the US Army had to offer, including the Congressional Medal of Honor. And he managed to achieve all of this before his 20th birthday. We're talking about the one and only slayer of tanks, the original Captain America. We're talking about Audie Murphy.
I didn't drink too much out of then.
I don't care what other people think.
Really was coming from my face, pure and dare.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few.
By the content of their character.
Where did we get such men? At the going down of the sun, we will remember them.
The absolute legend of Audie Murphy began in Hunt County, Texas on June 20th, 1925. He was born to poor sharecroppers Emmett Berry Murphy and his wife Josie Bell Murphy. Audie was the seventh of 12 children, a big old Irish family there. Young Audie was a loner, prone to flashes of anger and terrible mood swings. His father often drifted in and out of his life until he eventually abandoned the family altogether. Murphy dropped out of school and took a job picking cotton for $1 a day to help out his mother. He also worked on his rifle skills by hunting game to feed the family. Although not the oldest, he quickly became the man of the house. Tragically, Murphy's mother, Josie, fell into bad health rather suddenly and would end up passing away from endocarditis and pneumonia when he was only 16 years of age. The loss of his mother would have a profound impact on the young man, leaving him feeling lost and alone, as if he was missing a part of himself. He would search for that missing part for the remainder of his life. From a young age, Murphy wanted to be a soldier and often dreamed about combat, but when he tried to enlist, the Army, Navy and Marine Corps all turned him down for being underweight and underage. After the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941, Audie's sister provided an affidavit that falsified his date of birth by 1 year, and when he enlisted in Dallas this time around, he was accepted into the US Army on the 30th of June, 1942. During his physical, Murphy's height was recorded as being 5 foot 5.5 inches tall, and he weighed only 112 pounds. His company commander thought him too weak to serve in combat infantry and tried to have him transferred to cook and baker school. But Murphy wasn't having that, and instead insisted on becoming a combat infantryman. He received basic training at Camp Walters in Texas. There he earned the marksman badge with rifle component bar and expert badge with bayonet component bar. Whether up close or at a distance, the man was a real goer. Murphy spent 13 weeks at Camp Walters before being sent to Fort Meade for advanced training. He shipped out of Camp Kilmer, New Jersey on February 20th, 1943 and landed in Casablanca in French Morocco, where he was promptly assigned to Company B, 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, under the command of Major General Lucien Truscott. The United States had secured Port Lyotte as part of Operation Torch in November of 1942. The 3rd Division, which included Audie Murphy, was sent there in March of 1943. General Truscott was a thorough man and took the soldiers through intense training at Arzew, Algeria, in preparation for an amphibious landing at Sicily. Although this training included the 30-mile, 8-hour-long march known as Truscott's Trot, as well as bayonet and landmine drills, Murphy performed well and was promoted to Private First Class. After Axis forces surrendered in French Tunisia on 13th of May 1943, the division was sent back to Algeria to begin training for Operation Copycat, a planned assault landing in Sicily. The 3rd Division would then ship out of Tunisia on July 7, 1943, bound for the Allied invasion of Sicily. They landed at Licata on July 10th. Murphy was promoted to corporal on the 15th. A short time after that, he would see active combat when Company B engaged the enemy around Kanikati. During this encounter, he killed 2 Italian officers as they fled from him. B Company would then push on to Palermo. However, Murphy would be sidelined due to illness. He took a week to recover, then reported straight back to his unit. The Allies would go on to take Port Messina, a crucial strategic location for the taking of Sicily. En route to Messina, Company B was assigned to a hillside location to protect the machine gun nest. The remainder of the 3rd Infantry engaged the enemy at San Fratello. The battle was a success, and the 3rd Infantry Division's 7th Infantry Regiment secured the port on August 17th. After experiencing the intensity of full-on combat for the first time, Murphy would go on to comment, "I have seen war as it actually is, and I do not like it, but I will go on fighting." Once Sicily was secured, the Allies moved on to Italy. The 3rd Infantry Division came ashore at Battipaglia during the Salerno landings. Here they would meet with increasing enemy resistance. While travelling along the Volturno River with his best friend Laddie Tipton and another soldier, Murphy came under fire as the trio approached the bridge. The 3rd man in their unit was killed. Tipton acted immediately, tossing a few grenades in the direction of the incoming fire. Murphy opened up with his Thompson submachine gun and managed to kill 5 German soldiers. The Allied forces pressed on towards Napoli, arriving on the 1st of October. The 3rd Infantry Division would then take part in the Allied assault on the Volturno line. When closing in on Mignano Monte Lungo Hill 193, Company B countered an attack by 7 German soldiers. They killed 3 and took 4 as prisoners. For his part in the fighting so far, Murphy was again promoted on December 13th, this time to the rank of sergeant. 3rd Division had suffered heavy casualties over the course of the conflict. It had been a long hard slog up until that point. However, the brass didn't take it easy on the men. They were immediately put through intense training for the planned storming of Anzio beachhead in January. This was to be the first step in the liberation of Rome. The training was heavily focused around an amphibious landing at Salerno. Murphy was again promoted, this time to Staff Sergeant. On January 21st, Murphy was hospitalised in Napoli for malaria and would miss the initial landings. However, he would return to duty in time for the ill-fated First Battle of Cisterna, and it would prove to be Murphy's most intense combat experience to date. Company B had suffered severe losses over the course of the battle, and only 30 men remained. Murphy was the only non-commissioned officer still standing, and as a result, he became Company B platoon commander. While taking shelter in an abandoned farmhouse on March 2nd, Murphy's platoon engaged a passing German tank. Murphy crawled out alone, getting close enough to the tank to use his rifle grenades. In true badass style, he destroyed that enemy tank, and would receive the Bronze Star with V device for his efforts. Murphy would continue on with scouting patrols, routinely rounding up German prisoners, until he was hospitalised again on March 13th with a second bout of malaria. On May 8th, Murphy, along with many of the other officers and enlisted men of B Company, were awarded the Combat Infantryman badge. Murphy was also awarded a bronze oak leaf cluster for his Bronze Star. American forces would go on to liberate Rome on June 4th, and Murphy would remain there with his platoon until July. He would next see combat during the Allied invasion of southern France, known as Operation Dragoon. Murphy landed at 0800 hours on August 15th at Yellow Beach, near Ramatuelle, as part of the first wave of the assault. As 3rd Platoon progressed inland towards an incline, one of their light machine gun squads became separated from the group and came under concentrated German fire. One was killed and another was wounded. Murphy ran out alone to locate the lost squad and return them to the unit. Once he found them, he used the squad's own machine gun to return fire at the Germans, killing 2 and wounding 1. He then relinquished the machine gun back to the squad and took up a new position where he was joined by his best friend, Laddie Tipton. The instant the 2 men were together, 2 German soldiers exited a house about 100 yards away and approached them while waving a white flag. Tipton believed it to be a genuine attempt to surrender and revealed himself from cover. He gestured for the German soldiers to move toward him, and that's when a burst of machine gun fire suddenly erupted from the house. Tipton was killed instantly. Murphy would later recount that he felt as if he was living a nightmare. His brain became cold and alert, abandoning all concern for his own life. His whole being, in that moment, was concentrated solely on killing. Audie Murphy advanced on the house alone. He cared nothing of the heavy German fire streaking towards him, advancing without regard for his own life, toward the enemy's stronghold. He cared only about delivering vengeance from the barrel of his weapon. He killed 6 German soldiers, wounded 2, and took several more as prisoners. He received the Distinguished Service Cross for his actions on that day. On August 27th, at Montélimar, the 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division, along with the 36th Infantry Division, engaged the Germans in order to secure the area. By the time the battle was over on August 29th, they had taken over 500 prisoners. Murphy, with the 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry Regiment, received the Presidential Unit Citation. As the 3rd Infantry moved farther into France, they were met by increased enemy resistance. At Genevril on September 15, 1944, Murphy narrowly escaped death when a mortar shell detonated next to him. The resulting explosion killed 2 other soldiers and wounded 3. Murphy sustained an injury to his heel but stayed in the fight, proving that he surpassed even the great Achilles in battle cred. Murphy would receive his first Purple Heart for the injury to his heel. By this point, only Murphy and 2 other original members of Company B remained. The rest had been killed or taken off the line. In late September, General O'Daniel moved the 15th Infantry 3rd Division to the Moselle and Clary Valley. The area consisted of hilly terrain and stone quarries, a very defensible position for the Germans. The 15th met heavy resistance north of Saint-Denis at the fortified Lemay Quarry. On October 2nd, Murphy crawled alone to the location of a machine gun nest at Lemay. It was manned by a unit of German officers. When he was within 15 yards of the nest, Audie Murphy rose to his feet. The gunner immediately spun his MG-40 machine gun on him, but the barrel of the weapon got caught in some shrubbery, and a burst of fire swept wide to Murphy's right. Murphy immediately lobbed 2 hand grenades at the men in the nest, killing 4 and wounding 3. This display of bravery would win him the Silver Star. The 15th were successful in their continued attack, and they forced the Germans to retreat from the quarry on October 5th. On that particular day, Murphy crawled alone again, carrying an SCR 436 radio for 50 yards towards the Germans, while under continuous fire. Once within 200 yards of the German position, he radioed in an artillery strike, and remained at his position alone for an hour directing his men. When they finally took the hill, 15 German soldiers had been killed, and 35 had been wounded. Murphy's actions in this engagement won him the Bronze Oak Leaf Cluster for a Silver Star. By October 14th, he was awarded a battlefield commission to 2nd Lieutenant, making him platoon leader. During Operation Dogface, the 3rd Platoon of Company B was attacked by a German sniper group. Murphy captured 2 before he was shot in the hip by a 3rd sniper. Murphy returned fire, nailing the sniper right between the eyes. He would end up in the 3rd General Hospital at Aix-en-Provence. The wound to his hip had become gangrenous by that stage, so some of his muscle tissue had to be removed in order to save him. This slight inconvenience only kept him out of combat until January. He was awarded his first Bronze Oak Cluster for his Purple Heart due to this injury. The Colmar Pocket was an 850 square mile area in the Vosges Mountains and had been held by the Germans since November 1944. General O'Daniel moved the 3rd Infantry Division into the Colmar Pocket on December 15th, while Murphy was still in hospital. He would rejoin his platoon on January 14th, the day the 3rd Division was ordered in to secure bridgeheads at the Colmar Canal. After crossing the E River through the Riedveer Woods on January 24th, the 3rd Division was ordered to the town of Holzfear, where they were met by strong German counterattack. The next day, Murphy had a run-in with another mortar shell. Again, 2 other officers were killed, but Murphy only received wounds to both legs. He was awarded a 2nd Oak Leaf Cluster for his Purple Heart. After such prolonged and intense combat, Company B's numbers had dropped from 235 men to only 18. Murphy was the only remaining officer, so on January 26th, he was made company commander. While waiting for reinforcements at the Colmar pocket, Murphy witnessed the Germans form a line in preparation for an attack. 6 German tanks then roared to the outskirts of Holzwehr, split into 3 groups of 2, and then fanned out to either side of the clearing. The landscape was covered in snow, and the Germans were adorned in white garb, making it difficult to discern targets. But Murphy's eagle eye and cracked shot cared nothing for what the enemy was wearing. The only wild card available other than the man himself was the M10 tank destroyer that stood overwatch close by. Unfortunately, the Germans managed a direct hit in the M10 in the first exchanges, which caused the tank to burst into flames and the crew to flee for their lives. This was only a minor inconvenience for a boss warrior like Audie Murphy. Now facing overwhelming numbers of enemy troops and tanks, he ordered his men to retreat to positions in the woods. Again, he remained at his post alone, firing his M1 carbine at the advancing enemy, while also relaying coordinates for artillery strikes. With pinpoint accuracy, Murphy brought down hellfire on the enemy troops, and gave them something to think about with his equally accurate rifle skills. As the enemy continued to close in on him, Murphy mounted a burning M10 tank destroyer and manned a 50 caliber machine gun situated on the turret. He immediately spotted a squad of German troops trying to flank his position by crawling through a ditch, and was quick to bring his weapon to bear on them. He opened fire and cut down the enemy. Those that were not killed outright retreated with haste. The M10 was full of fuel and ammunition, so the raging fire could cause the tank to explode at any moment. He was also exposed from head to toe to a wall of incoming lead that was focused directly at him as he stood on top of the burning tank. But Murphy stayed there for a whole hour, trading fire with the German troops and the advancing tanks. They managed to hit him once in the leg, but Murphy kept going, only leaving the tank when he ran out of ammunition. After dismounting the tank, he walked down the road to the forest where his men were positioned. He would later write that he was too weak from fear and exhaustion to care if the Germans shot him in the back or not. Once he'd rejoined his men, Murphy refused all attempts to treat him or remove him from the field. He reloaded his weapon, he turned around, and he led his men right back into combat. Unbelievably, they managed to repel the German attack, sending them scurrying back to their line, whipped and stunned. Only once he was sure the job was done would Murphy allow any treatment to his wound, and even then he insisted upon staying with his men, a true badass. While fighting on the top of the burning tank, Murphy killed or wounded over 50 men. He stood in the face of certain death, and with only his iron-cast will and innate grit, he held the line against a numerically superior force. Murphy dutifully defended hard-won ground, which if it had fallen back into enemy hands, would have been disastrous for the American war effort. He went far above and beyond the call of duty, and against all odds, turned the tide of an impossible fight back into his favour. For this unbelievable act of heroism, Murphy received the Congressional Medal of Honor. When asked after the war why he had seized a machine gun and taken on an entire company of German infantry alone, he simply replied, "They were killing my friends." After the war, Murphy gave thought to entering the United States Military Academy, but after considering the heavy academic load, he decided against the idea. He was discharged from active service with the rank of First Lieutenant on August 17th and received the belated Good Conduct Medal. He was given a 50% disability classification on September 21st. At the outbreak of the Korean War on June 25, 1950, Audie Murphy's battle mode activated again, and he re-enlisted, this time to the 36th Infantry Division of the Texas National Guard. He held the rank of captain. Although he trained regularly during his movie career, he was never sent to Korea. He requested to be transferred to inactive service on October 1st, 1951, because of his commitments to MGM Studios. He was promoted to the rank of Major by the Texas National Guard and received his separation of service papers in 1966. He was then transferred to standby reserve. Murphy would retire in 1969. After the war, Murphy suffered from what was then called battle fatigue, but would later become known as post-traumatic stress disorder. He would start taking a sleeping pill called Pastidol to help him deal with the horrible nightmares that constantly plagued him. His mood swings continued to worsen. He would frequently lash out in bouts of anger and was very difficult to be around. He slept with a loaded pistol under his pillow every night and struggled with deep depression. Recognizing his dependency on sleeping pills as a problem, he locked himself in a hotel room for a week and went cold turkey, successfully breaking his addiction. His first wife, Wanda Hendricks, claimed that Murphy once held her at gunpoint during an episode. She also told of finding him crying at news footage of German war orphans, claiming that his actions in the war may have been the reason the children had no parents in the first place. Murphy and Hendricks would divorce in 1951. He would marry again 4 days later, this time to air hostess Pamela Opal Lee Archer. The couple would go on to have 2 sons, Terry Michael Murphy, born in 1952, and James Shannon Murphy, born in 1954. Audie Murphy would write a book about his life and experiences during the war called To Hell and Back. This would later go on to be made into a movie of the same name, but Hollywood felt the need to dumb it down because they were worried the audience would find it too difficult to believe, given the outrageous acts of heroism. On the 28th of May, 1971, Audie Murphy boarded a private plane in Atlanta, Georgia, bound for Martinsville, Virginia, with 4 other passengers. The plane was a twin-engine Aero Commander 680, and it was being flown by Herman Butler, a pilot with 8,000 hours worth of flight time. The plane hit rough weather over Roanoke, Virginia, with heavy rain and fog limiting visibility. The pilot was not instrument rated, so continued to fly under visual flight rules. His last radio message came just after 11 a.m., claiming that he intended to land at Roanoke's Woodrum Field. Unfortunately, the plane would crash into the remote and wooded Brush Mountain near Catawba, Virginia, 20 miles or 32 kilometers west of Roanoke. Audie Murphy, along with 5 other souls on board, was killed in the impact. He was only 46 years of age. In wartime, Murphy was a champion of unbelievable durability and grit. His courage in the face of overwhelming odds remains a source of inspiration for millions. But when returned to civilian life, he showed the same courage in facing his inner demons, even going so far as to try to help others with a similar affliction. In an effort to bring official attention to the dangers of post-traumatic stress disorder, Murphy often spoke candidly about his struggles with the disorder and called for greater support from the government. A prosperous country is often too quick to turn its back on its fighting men when the peace that they won with their lives has become the norm. It's taken for granted, and the sacrifices of the warriors who won it and protect it are often besmirched by the resulting softer, more coddled generation that's to follow. When things are easy, the weakling claims to be strong, because there's no cost in doing so. Everyone takes on the role of a moral superior or academic browbeater, because they never had to bleed into the dirt themselves. They've never had to watch their brothers die next to them. Most likely, never even been in a fight at all. Wouldn't it be great if politicians, liberal college students, and TV talking heads were the first ones to be sent to the front lines when war broke out? I reckon the treatment of vets would improve overnight if that was the case. Audie Murphy proved to be a master of the arts as well as combat. He was a movie star, a writer of poetry, and a philosopher. He was a thoughtful man as well as a boss soldier. I often wonder what he would have gone on to accomplish if he'd made it out of his 40s. He had a hard life, many tough breaks, but his quality as a man never wavered. He was loyal to his mother, and even after she died, when the government took his family into foster care against his will, he continued to send his service pay back to them. Once established as a movie star, he brought his married sister a house, a place where the rest of the family were also welcome to live. He bred horses, he wrote poetry, faced his demons. He served his country with distinction, setting an example for young men and women everywhere. This freedom thing doesn't create itself. It's not won by intellectuals or academics. It's won by those who have the courage to lose everything in order to gain it, even though they may never actually see the fruits for themselves. Patriotism gets men like Audie Murphy to sign up, but the fighting is done for the brothers standing next to them. God bless you, Audie Murphy, for standing the line, for proving that one man can't turn the tide. Courage is the art of standing up when you're afraid, and you did that many times in your life. You're proof that you can't judge a man's capabilities or worth by his physical size alone. Heart is most important, and you were all heart. If you've gotten to this stage of the video, thank you so much for joining me here today. This was an important one for me. If you enjoyed it, give me a like on the way out. It really helps the videos, really helps the channel. And I want to thank all of you legends who have commented on the videos, who have liked the videos or shared them, or in any way even just watched them. It really means a lot for me now, especially given the time I'm in and recent events in my life. But a very special thank you to everybody who subbed to the channel. You guys gave me a lifeline during some very tough times. And I want to thank you for that. And I hope you stick with me for the further videos to come. There's lots more work ahead for me, and I hope you join me on that quest. But until then, you keep standing the line. Don't back down. Nuts to the lot of them. God bless you all. Take care of business. The Duke loves you. Duke out.
And killing as many as 240 enemy soldiers.
Audie may have been the last American war hero. He was the best combat soldier in the 200-plus year history of the United States.